Hi, Helena.
Hi, Adam.
And hi to all of our listeners. Now, before we introduce our guest today, Helena, why don't you tell us about yourself?
My name is Helena Dix. I'm an operatic soprano from Australia. Just moved back to Australia. I love exploring the world and the operatic stages that take place all around it. I love to eat, cook, laugh, walk my dog, and do this podcast with my mate, Adam Miller.
My name is Adam Miller. I'm a former opera singer turned producer, writer and director. And Helena, you and I have had the great pleasure of working together in lots of different capacities over the years. Now, why don't you tell us who's on the episode today?
I'm glad you asked. On today's podcast, we have a dear friend of mine, Tanja Binggeli. Tanja is an esteemed voice and German language coach based in Berlin. From 2007 to 2020, she served as the German language coach at Opera Australia before relocating to Berlin. Despite this move, she regularly returns to Sydney to collaborate with none other than Maestra Simone Young as the German language coach for Sydney Symphony operatic projects. Throughout her career, Tanja has worked extensively with most major Australian classical music companies and tertiary institutions. She has coached both local Australian and international casts on major works of Mozart, Richard Strauss and Wagner, with none other than La Dix. Tanja is passionate about working with singers, dedicated to helping them sing freely while developing rich interpretations and genuine enjoyment of both text and music.
So, we open this episode discussing Tanja's less than up-to-date online presence. And at the end of the recording, we did run out of time to give Tanja our rapid 5 questions, but she was gracious enough to send us her answers as voice notes. So we've dropped them in at the end. If all that sounds interesting to you, then listen on.
Your expectation must have been, so I didn't think about it. And also my online stuff. I mean, oh my God, it is so out of date. It is so embarrassing.
Dude, it is so out of date.
I know.
Because I love you and adore you, and I've obviously worked with you, and that's why we wanted to have you on, because I wanted to talk all things passionate in German and language. But then I looked you up as well, because a good podcast host does that, and I'm like,
I know. What the hell? I know. Yeah. And the thing is, I get contacted about that stuff still, and that's why I can't quite bring myself to take it down, because I do that work on the side. Right. And opera singers come through this way, you know, and people from the outside world, they Google, they're like, oh yes, you're what I need. So, but it's a really embarrassing sort of like double presence, and so, I should totally get rid of it.
I did have a lot of questions. I was like, okay, right.
But actually, it's probably a really good lead-in to ask the question, tell us what you do and how you got there, because you are a person of many talents who does lots of things. And let's assume your online presence is slightly out of date. So we'd love to hear actually what you're doing.
Yeah, the photo with the moustache, I loved it. I mean, it's, I wish you still had it, the moustache.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that, less facial hair is much more 2026. So
exactly. Yeah,
sorry,
I just had to move with the times. Yeah.
Talk us through how you got to be like my favorite ever German coach for opera singers and all the other stuff that you do. How did it get there?
Well, that is tough competition because there are so many of us out there. So how did I get there? I got there a little bit like sort of by fluke, being in the right place at the right time. And as we have spoken about in the past, I believe in such things leading to, the place where you're supposed to be. So I was in Sydney, and I had studied languages at Sydney University and had done an exchange in Vienna and had intended to go on to another program in Geneva. And instead I returned to Sydney for love, as one does, and then found myself, because my father is Swiss, and the idea of moving to the continent with the mountains had always totally inspired me. And so
fair enough.
I never saw my future in Australia. I just sort of...
Even with the Blue Mountains right there.
Indeed. And, many a Sunday afternoon was spent there on long family car trips. But, I ended up coming back to Sydney and finishing this degree, and I got a call. I was working for Patrick Tor, the classical music agent, and I got a call saying that it's also another gorgeous love story. Their German coach at Opera Australia had gone AWOL because she had eloped to, I believe it was South Africa. I don't know her personally.
Oh, wow.
And they then were in dire need of a German coach. There was a German coach emergency at Opera Australia.
As so often happens, yes.
Who are you going to call? Yeah.
And so there I was, fresh out of my languages degree. And I should add, actually, the crucial information is that I did the languages degree in French, Italian, and German. I had already spoke German, but I didn't speak French and Italian at the time because I was hoping to become an opera singer. So I had sort of studied classical singing in my teenage years and in my early 20s. But I decided not to do a music degree at the con. I sort of wanted to go to a university and do a more classic university degree, and I did music as well at Sydney Uni. But yeah, it was because I wanted to become a singer, and so I wanted to learn these skills to feed back into my singing. And then just organically, as it happens, if you're not one of the chosen ones, the singing sort of fell away, and I was then left kind of opera singer adjacent in this kind of classical music agency industry. And then they obviously thought I was a bit of a sucker, and they thought, she might have some of the skills that might be useful to do this work. And I was at the ripe old age of 23 when I got this phone call, and I originally turned it down. I said, "I think you're bonkers. Thanks, but no thanks."
Did you turn it down in German or?
Well, it was Australia, so I didn't need to do that.
Yeah, but like, if you had to turn them down in German, like in the most crazy way, what would you say? How would it go?
Nein.
Nein.
Sind Sie total verrückt? Also, flippen Sie aus? Auf keinen Fall.
Flippen Sie aus? Du bist bonkers? Ja? Sorry,
yes, sind Sie gebonkers.
Please, is that really German?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
Sind Sie gebonkers is absolutely not German.
I wanted it to be German so badly. As soon as you said it, I went, yes.
Yeah. You say anything with a German accent and it can be convincing.
That's great.
Yeah. It's just occurred to me that being sort of recorded in an interview with Helena Dix, this is so dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know what you mean.
Come out of my mouth.
No idea.
No, I'm sure you don't. I'm sure no one has had
I
this
will
response.
say more than once we've had a guest go, you're just gonna edit that part out, right? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And occasionally we get emails just going, hey, so here are the list of things we'd like to have you edit out because we kind of got carried away. We said a whole lot of shit that we shouldn't have said. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's how we roll. Yeah.
So
feel free. This is a censorship space. We're cool with that.
Okay, you are. Okay, Ren. Okay, I must trust you. So anyway, so I then got a call back I'd gotten a call from Opera Australia and I had said no, and then that person then called Patrick, and then Patrick got on the phone to me and he said, you will absolutely not turn down this opportunity. Wow. Are you nuts? And so anyway, so then I went in and I coached the young artists. They were doing leader recitals and that was gorgeous. The young artist at the time was Sian Pendry and Dominica Matthews. And
nice.
Amazing.
So it was really sweet. To Metzi, beautiful. And then I got the call up to do the Tannhäuser later that year.
Oh.
And so I was like, wow, okay, well, I'm obviously not allowed to turn this down. So here we go. And in various ways, it was an absolute baptism of fire, but it was also one of the most kind of heightened experiences of my life that led me down a path that then completely changed my life from where it was then. Truly. And, my first calls for that production were with the chorus, and my first chorus music call, it was with Michael Black, who was the chorus master at the time.
Yeah.
And he loves languages. Like he loves kind of doing the work of kind of getting into the music and the musicality of the sound that is opened up by having a kind of a more intricate understanding of the language and its sounds. Loves that work. And when you're doing that en masse, so I walked in and there were 120 people.
That's all. Just 120 looking at you, fresh on the job. Yeah, not nerve-wracking at all. No.
Not at all nerve-wracking.
Not at all.
Wow. Oh, wow. And so, he was, a very, saying he sort of demanded a lot of respect as a figure, Michael Black, and
Sure.
And if you're supposed to sort of talk in front of these people and tell them what they should be doing, I mean, I found that quite intimidating. But at the same time, the utter privilege. And I think that was the glorious thing about starting in that way, the utter privilege of working in this industry, such that you are so close at hand to such special people and such amazing sound and this phenomenon which I'm a deeply convicted evangelist for now. Ask any of my friends and family. What a way to start. And just the ocean of sound coming back and having the utter privilege of being in the room, let alone kind of contributing to the making of the art around that. Yeah, it's amazing.
We've had quite a few really high profile, wonderful, wonderful singers on the podcast. And one of the things that they say about starting off in their career and bouncing into their first big contract is, or actually, in fact, still having this thing of an imposter syndrome, like just feeling like, how the hell am I here? How the hell did this happen? And that must have been really strong for you, like when you fell into it at first, especially. Gosh, yeah.
Was it ever? Oh my goodness. The ensemble call, I literally didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Wow.
And I had when you walk in, and I hope this is okay to talk about, and you can decide later, whether this ends up on the cutting room floor or not, but walking in as a young woman to a very male-dominated space, particularly for whatever reason, at least when I started, the music staff space was very male-dominated. I only ever had male conductors, and there are different male members of music staff.
Absolutely.
And when I started, there were there were gentlemen who had been around for quite some years, and I think one of them on that day was having a little fun with the fact that he had a fresh, young, naive thing sitting next to him.
Of course.
And he wasn't particularly kind, and also it must seem strange for them to have this little thing kind of turn up and also look terrified. I'm a fairly transparent person, so he must have also thought, what on earth is going on, as much as I did. And after the first line that was sung of I think we didn't start from the beginning. I think we started from the ensemble with the various meisters, and he raised his hand just so they'd sung, and the conductor had stopped them and was giving them some notes, and they were just about to restart again. And then this music staff member raised his hand and sort of interrupted proceedings and says, excuse me, the language coach has something to say.
What a knob.
Oh my God.
It was.
Oh, what a knob.
I think that is the most kind of frightening moment that I've ever had in my life. And I really understood the meaning of wanting the ground to open up and swallow you in that moment. And so then the whole room turns to me. And these are international artists that have flown in, like local and international artists who are experienced Wagnerian interpreters at this stage. And I had absolutely nothing to say. I had made a few little notes that I was going to discreetly perhaps talk to people about afterwards.
Yes.
Perhaps. But anyway, then, so that was the beginning. And I had a lot of those sorts of experiences. Being a young woman in this position was challenging. But, the baptism of fire in these sorts of schools, they lead you to, they're very character building. And I do feel like after having to deal with conductors of various dispositions that I don't feel like there's anyone in the world that I could be afraid of at this point. So,
Apart from me.
Oh, well, you would, of course, on your own category until you're entirely terrifying. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, gosh, wow, what a start to things. And and then it's just gone on from there. And what took you overseas as well? Like how did that come about?
I think one thing I would just say, kind of after having started like that, the one thing that was really fantastic for me at the beginning was it was really fortunate that I started with Michael Black, actually. And I just want to say this to kind of make the connection between the terrified person and how I then continued to do the work and didn't sort of flee, because like I did have the skills in terms of like I had the singing background and the sort of ears and this sort of technical, I had a sort of a literary and a linguistic basis that I had from the university, but how to draw that out in a relevant way, that was what I had to learn.
Wow.
And because Michael, he was so great. He was really encouraging, because we went on to do quite a number of chorus operas in the coming years. And I really am grateful to him for encouraging the art of the coaching in a way that felt natural and on the basis of knowledge that I think I might have been otherwise too intimidated to actually,
Feel the freedom to be able to express that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Because I was just so young, and in many ways I was very young somehow.
And
So,
do you think though that have you seen a change in the industry with that let's call it toxic masculinity, or that masculine dominance in a rehearsal room? Have you seen a change in that, or is that something that you still have to battle against?
That's a good question. I think recently there's been quite a lot said about this. Katie Mitchell has come out and talked quite a lot about that,
Yeah.
the British director. But in my own personal experience, I think that, especially in Australia, I think things have really shifted because I feel like people have become more conscious of it, and there have been very conscious steps to involve and engage more women practitioners.
Yeah.
And so already when you sort of change the numbers in the room, like the ratio of men to women and the roles of sort of artistic power that they may have. And I think that shifts things automatically. I think when I started, it really was, it's 20 years ago now. When I started, it was really men being in the leadership positions was absolutely the unquestioned status quo, and anyone else was an exception. And like I remember looking around when I did The Ring, and it was just like at the front of the room for such a big project, you've got so many people involved. And so in the rehearsal room, you've got these tables, and there are people sitting at the tables watching proceedings. And, the whole creative team on Neil Armfield's side was full of men, except for Kate Champion, the choreographer.
Yep.
And then there was like a table of a good team of at least 3 at any given time stage managers, and they were mostly men except for Miranda Summers. And then the music staff were all men, and most of the roles are masculine roles as well. I mean, I just remember kind of clocking the difference in genders in the room, and I think it was on that project that I started to realize the difference that had made in my career to that point, and how it feels to be a woman sort of moving in that space. Because I think also the language coach has a really funny role where you have to, you have a certain authority in the sense that it is your responsibility to carry the linguistic integrity of the work as far as possible. But also your supporting role of the singers to help them get there.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're supporting other members of staff who have questions about the text or the style or whatever. But it's always, there's no time in the rehearsal process for a language coach in the production. So you always need to find the space, and finding the space and carving out how you are going to have agency in that space is not straightforward. It's something that is really a part of the craft. And I remember thinking the fact that I'm a young woman coming into this space doesn't necessarily make things easier, or means that I need to be conscious of how I interact with people in a particular way, I think.
And do you find that like different countries or different over the years that you've been working, whether it's Europe or whether it's Australia, do you find that the attitude of how much time the language coach gets in the room, or the kind of ability to say something, is really variable depending? Because I know myself, working all around the world, the language coach is I would like to say power, but I don't mean power in a negative sense. What I mean is the ability for the language coach to interrupt when they need to, or speak freely, or anything like that, is so variable depending on so many factors. So like what you're talking about, if there's like an old school kind of like a slightly toxic masculine old school like leadership, you find that, and if there's a female like language coach, then that's a really interesting thing. And then sometimes I found the language coach actually like very, very verbal and almost so part of the team that it becomes a little bit like schoolyard bully-ish, like sometimes. And, I've had everything from a language coach sitting in a production when I did Carmen, and French is not my forte. And I'm, you've worked with me, so I'm very honest about, where I sit with things. And I just said to them, I said, look, it's the one language I've only ever studied phonetically. I've not studied it, fully as a language. And I was in a rehearsal and I was doing Fresquita, and it was just, blah, 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 blah. And I sang something that was obviously very wrong. And instead of the coach kind of having a giggle or going, Helena, like, or noting it down afterwards or all that kind of thing, she stopped the whole rehearsal and basically belittled me and said, do you know what you just sang? You idiot, blah, blah, blah. Like really like quite horrendous, which I already had a complex about my friends anyway. And I'd been very honest about that. So my vulnerability of like already saying that, and that's got nothing to do, of course, with that person being a language coach. It's just the position that person was in, and that person just was a knob, basically. But my point is like the must be really interesting for you. Do you go in going, this is how I coach, and this is how I work, and this is how I work best with singers at this age. So now that you've been doing it for a while, do you go in and make it very clear to a company and say, well, you don't sit them down and say it because that would be weird, but do you kind of stick true to your guns on whether or not you, say, for instance, would say something during a rehearsal, or do you just take notes and do it afterwards, or do you get the vibe of the room? Like, how does it work for you as a coach going in like to new productions like that? Because I would imagine it would be really variable.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because you're absolutely right. From what you've observed, yeah, that is really. I'm so glad you told that story, because basically, so in the first instance, to answer your question, I'm someone who really judges the vibe of the room. And the vibe of the room has to do with so many elements. It has to do with what you perceive the confidence of the singers to be. Sometimes people are making a role debut. Sometimes the role debut is almost also a language debut, depending on where you are. But that also can happen. Well, it might be the first time that they're singing in like Wagnerian German, or the first time they've sung in German for a long time. Also, the conductor might have a different way of working, or will have, their own way of working, whether it is to be in their own flow and just to want to run the rehearsal according to their own kind of impulses, or they may be more collaborative and they may kind of look for the energy of someone else to move things forward. And so it really depends on I think you can work best if you kind of work out how the leader of the room, the conductor, wants to shape things. But also, I love that you told that story, because I don't know why this happens, but honestly, I would say 85% of the time when I introduce myself as the language coach on a project, I get these eyes, these sort of very wide eyes, and kind of a fear response from the singer, like, oh my God, I'm going to steer clear of this woman. And like they
that was usually my response for language coaches as well. So I get that entirely. Yeah.
No, seriously. And the people who've, they've come into the ensemble call and they've been really jovial and really chatty and really warm, and they seem super confident. And then suddenly you introduce yourself, like at the break or whenever or beforehand. And like, whoa, Iron Curtain. It's just, and I've got one particular one in mind, and I just was so shocked. And then I noticed the trend, and I thought, people are being traumatized by language coaches.
Yep.
And then, I hear stories like that one. That's a really good example of the Carmen story.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think there's such a fine balance between, I mean, obviously you work as a language coach one-on-one. I've experienced that with you. Like, I've booked in times with you and we go through my stuff, and it's just the best hour of my life ever when we do. And
I love it too.
I thought my German was okay until I met you, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. So Tanja and I did Valkyrie together for Sydney Symphony, and because she is like Simone's go-to, as she should be, and we had a coaching like on day one, and I went in and I was like, my German's all right, and I realized very soon that it was not that it wasn't okay, that it could be just so much more glorious. And the thing I love about you is you're so passionate, and like the language to you is just the most exquisite thing, and putting it together with beautiful vocal stuff that's magic as well. And so, but you are a treasure, and I mean that. I really mean that. Like, it's like I've not met many people who are just, there is just so much joy to gain from you about the language and the way everything goes. So I think I'm not surprised that Australia calls on you to fly you back and do work from Europe and stuff, because there is such a big difference between someone who just really is on your team and wants you to do well, and someone who isn't. So It's a really and I've had, I've worked all around the world and I've had so many different coaches and things. And as you said, the collaboration and stuff is really interesting and you have people who bounce off each other. But I guess I'd never thought of it from your side in that sense of that the singers become like very defensive. And I remember once at a very big house, which I shall not name, one of the big stars, we were all doing a music call and I jumped into the show and the language coach said to them, can you do this, this, this? And he literally just went, yeah, sure, absolutely. And the language coach walked off and he's like, and then he literally got the notes and like tore them up and put them in the bin. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
Like I thought that was disgusting. And the language coach wasn't doing anything bad, So there must be a really fine line. I'd really never thought about the fact that you say, hi, I'm the language coach and everyone's like, oh no.
Yep.
But I bet they're not like that once they get to know you.
I was going to say though, I also know, I've worked with so many terrifying language coaches. Like there must be something in the role that draws some people in, and clearly, Tanja, you're the exception. But I have met more than my fair share of terrifying humans who happen to be language coaches, and so I think there's definitely something in it.
I've thought a lot about it because it is obviously a really present archetype in people's minds, and I wonder. It's the only conclusion that I've come to. I wonder if it has to do with this place in particularly the production rehearsal room, where you're not given sort of a marked off space to do your work. So you're always sort of running after people, like as they go to their break or
little
like
sticky notes.
Things like that. And you need to make your own time. And I think you either need to be very, very patient and very responsive to every individual person, which can be kind of a bit exhausting.
Of course.
Or, you can just insist that this is going to be your time and you will be heard in a different way. And I think that somehow, those sorts of attitudes have come from a place of frustration. Because I think actually a lot of people who do language work are quite passionate about what they do. And I think they don't find perhaps the time and the channels to get the passion that they actually have out and in a sort of in an accessible way across to the artists, in a way that's going to make them excited about it, to get them to move their own thinking. Because it all comes back to this idea of privilege, I think. If you feel like it's a privilege to collaborate doing this very special work, which I believe it is, and it just is, then you will approach it with some respect and you will approach the artist with respect. And part of that respect is understanding how they operate, regardless of how you might want to operate. As a language coach, you are the person facing the thousands. And so you have to be flexible. And sometimes also you get orders from above. It's not just my own passion. It's the conductor saying, this is not possible. You have to change this.
Wow.
And
okay.
Oh, definitely. You're an agent for the conductor very often.
Wow.
And in ways that are often very something funny about language. It's so personal. Often the thing that the conductor will get you to communicate is so important to that conductor for some reason. That vowel, that timbre, whether it is that they're looking for that timbre to match the clarinet at that point, or they're looking for the echo of the horns or whatever. They have such a vivid image of what the sound needs to look like, and it can be just as much as an open O where it should be closed to just make a conductor go mad.
So how many times then do you give a note before you just give up? How many times do you have to chase them down and go, no, it's a closed vowel. It's a closed vowel. That's fine. Open.
She told me like 7 times and then she stopped telling me. So
okay, so we know it's 7 is the maximum. That's
7,
good to know.
yes.
That's really good to know.
I think you should take 7 as a compliment because not everyone gets 7. I think it's a question of potential.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Of course.
Yeah. So you really find there are people who you just go, you're not going to get there.
But for me, it's not, you're not going to get there as much as this is not helping.
Okay.
And often it has to do with a resistance that is so old that has nothing to do with me and there's nothing I can do about that.
Yep.
Or if I have time, I'm pretty determined.
She is.
That's
She's
good.
very determined. I will give her that.
So I will really try and find a way. But at a certain point, you need to recognize that, it's you definitely don't want to you never want to cause stress. You never want to add to the stress of the performance ever. And so I will often I won't just kind of ghost the singer after the third or fourth attempt if I think it's not getting anywhere. As in, I will have a conversation. I will say, look, I think that this is presenting a bit of a challenge, this shift, and so I'm happy to leave it, and so I'm not going to give you this note anymore. And then, and they relax. Because otherwise you see it in their eyes. They're getting up to that note, they're getting up to that word, and they're like, am I going to be able to do it? And then it's a complete distraction, which is utterly counterproductive. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I was going to ask, when people are preparing German, what are some of those high leverage fixes that can often change things quickly?
Not a good question. High leverage fixes. It depends on the experience of the singer, I would say.
Okay.
It would depend on the experience of the singer, and that is their relationship to their own breath.
Okay.
Their relationship to singing in languages that are foreign to them. And their relationship to singing in German or speaking in German. And then on that basis, then there are some things but I would say, that are kind of quick fixes, high leverage fixes. It's an excellent expression. But I would say the main thing is to come back to a person's breath and really solidify the point that the legato that we are looking for in Italian, that Anglophones particularly are used to discovering when they learn to sing well in Italian.
Yeah.
That sort of unlocks this idea of flow that, we definitely don't have when we speak in English, and that we're sort of unfamiliar with as a concept. We sort of discover it through our own bodies when we do it in Italian well for the first time. My big point is to say that legato that you have in Italian is not exclusive to Italian. It's exclusive to good singing.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Love
and
that.
So basically helping people extend the legato that they have found through Italian singing and through Italian sounds that are fewer than German sounds into this lush texture of German.
You see why I love her?
And
that's why.
This is amazing. I love this.
Yeah,
love
that's why
this.
she allows me to still do my beautiful legato stuff, and and but that's also the difference of having someone who truly understands the voice as well, and that's.
Yeah.
I have to say, I know it's not a prerequisite to be a language coach and to have studied singing, but it makes a hell of a difference because you make the German sound authentic but still so beautiful. And I didn't think, I'm going to be honest, I didn't, before I met you, I didn't think that was always possible in some of that repertoire, in some of the Wagner. In doing the Valkyrie, I was like, I'm just going to, and you were like, no, sing, Helena, sing my angel of music, and that's something that I hadn't experienced before with the German coach. So, I think, having that singing background, you must say it helps you as well, right? Just understanding, good technique and stuff as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that really helps is that I have had that aha moment with the Italian legato, and I think so I kind of can relate to that, and I know that that's a moment, and I can hear when singers haven't had that moment in German, which is very, very often, even if it's a very accomplished singer, and they blame the German. They assume that, and I understand that, because they've never had anyone build that bridge for them.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so then I can sort of say that thing that you can do. And because I studied Italian and I speak French also in my everyday life as well, that's also very helpful because usually one of those three languages is a preferred language for a singer. And so she can kind of go through those doors.
Gotcha.
That's also really helpful.
Oh, that's so good.
And obviously you're missing out Australian in that list too, right? French, German, Italian, Australian diphthong language,
Well, as a matter of contrast, Australian English is very, very helpful. Polythongs, what not to do in German, Australian gives me a really good basis for that. And let me tell you, my Australian accent has become so much stronger since moving to Europe. It's like I'm
Really?
defiant. Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm
you
obsessed obsessed with my children learning triphthongs. You should hear my 5-year-old son's "oh." I'm so proud of it.
So how do you do exercises going, no?
I know. I just make it as like I lay it on as thick as possible myself, and it has definitely caught on.
As we say in our
happy about it.
household, nice.
Nice. Oh, we haven't done that. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, that's something to work on.
Hey, so when you're giving singers feedback in the room, what do you want to hear from them that makes you think, oh yeah, I can work with this person? So when you're giving advice, what do you kind of want to hear back from them, even if they're not getting it the first time?
Okay, so let's talk about Helena again.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
No, because exactly. And I'm not just saying that because she's in the room. Exactly the energy that Helena gives back, whether in the room or on Zoom, it's just she wants to know. And like also Helena has the tools to apply it instantly.
Mm.
And if there's a blockage there, she's often worked out intellectually what it is, and so she then formulates the question, asks the question very eloquently. I try and find an eloquent response, and then you can work really productively, really quickly,
and very intensively
and so this
as
big
well.
concept. Yeah. And I mean, listen to me. What a complete nerd
you are! But I love your nerdiness. I love
it. So wild.
Oh yeah, we are a nerd-friendly space here. Yeah,
yeah, I do.
Like we'll do a coaching together, and then I'll send her like a voice note, on Messenger or something, and I'm like, so, this thing that we did, and she's like, well, and you just hear like, you can almost hear like, I'm so glad you asked, Helena. Like, let's talk about this. It's just awesome.
It's awesome and very, very particular. I mean, this is the first type of conversation that I have had like this ever, I think. It's such like a pointy end of geekery that very few people in the world can really relate to. And so anyway, so indeed, when someone like Helena comes along and asks such a question, whoa, what a moment. Yes. So tonight. Oh, yeah. And you can pick them in the room. As soon as, you walk into the ensemble call, you start to hear people and the way they take notes and the way they light up. German repertoire often attracts nerds as well. I don't know what it is, but because I don't know what it is, but I have thought about it. And my reasoning is that perhaps because it is so detailed, the work to do.
And there's so much text.
There's so much text and every word has so many. Like I'm listening to every single letter that passes through a person's body, and we have consonant clusters that make Italians weep in German. It's so different and potentially difficult, but there's always a way through. Or just as I think also if I didn't have this belief, and if I couldn't communicate this fervor, this evangelistic fervor to the singers that there is a way through, they might not follow me along that way.
Do you think that because, I mean, obviously German repertoire is on a text level is so much more, it's not so much more complex, but if you look at something like bel canto, where I'm singing O Dio o cielo like for half an hour, in my bel canto, and then all of a sudden I've got German repertoire where I'm actually forming like whole sentences on every page and having to memorize all of that kind of thing. So it is a different mindset, I think, if we're talking about Strauss and Wagner and all this stuff, because there's so much involved. So my question to you is, if you had, say, myself, who's come from, like Sing Pretty and now like do this kind of hectic German repertoire, and then you had someone who was really primed in the German repertoire, maybe, a bit more of a natural speaker, but also their voice wasn't as, didn't do the pretty repertoire, but they had a lot more of the kind of viva, for the text. If you had a word or say like a sentence or a group of bits that are the same text, but two very different singers, do you think that your approach changes in how you coach both of those people in order to get the best sound? Or is it just like, no, the word must sound like this, but you're listening? So that's the thing that people don't understand about a language coach. They're looking at you and they're going, oh no, they're just going to tell someone how to pronounce it correctly. But actually it's not, right? Like you've got two singers who are singing the exact same thing, but their capabilities or their skill set is slightly different. So Do you find that difficult, or do you find that exciting, going in and working out the best way to get them to do that?
Look at my face. I'm so excited.
I just wish people could see you were like sitting back like, come on, dude. Like, this is better than whipped cream. Yeah. Yeah.
Winding up the nerdiness. Here we go.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need a special nerdiness rating for this episode. Warning. No, the approach would be entirely different, and I feel really excited to think about how that would be different, because what they are bringing to the table after years of craft that has been developed in a different direction produces a completely different singer, potentially completely different sound, different way of thinking, different understood priorities of the music and priorities of how their sound comes across. People who come from bel canto, who and when I say bel canto, I mean people who come from largely singing bel canto Italian repertoire, like you have a very particular, I think there are very particular ideas put into these singers' minds over time as to what the sound should be, and then that can become a bit of an obsession, and I think as a singer like that is often going to come to someone like me, coaching in German, and look at me with a different, like with fear in their eyes for a different reason. They're like, don't you mess with my beautiful sound.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't you put all those consonants in and make it stop. Yeah.
And mess it all up and make it stop. Exactly. That's why I'm like, just like sitting back going, bring it on. Because I'm not going to, and you're going to discover new beauties to your sound. Just you wait. And I'm going to be in the room to hear it, and it's going to be wonderful. So that's like the one side. Whereas if I've got a really typical kind of nerdy German singer who has, read libretto in the original German text and wants to talk about that, and then I'm gonna try and get the music more out of that person potentially, or kind of look at the musical phrasing via the way they understand the language phrasing.
Yeah, and like I said, people wouldn't people who are listening who are not singers, people who are just like general public who are listening to this would just be like, wow, God, never would have thought about it like that. You would have thought that a language coach just came in and it's just about the correct pronunciation, but it's so much more, right? It's so much more. What is the funniest mistake anyone has ever made in German that you have witnessed? So you've corrected something, and then have they ever sang something like immaculately inappropriate? Turned a word into something else.
Man, there must have been.
I mean, you'd never laugh at them because you laugh on the inside, right?
I think I'm too. Oh no! I think I'm far too serious to have even laughed on the inside. How silly! They're definitely. I can think of something ridiculous that I have said within this sort of a context, which I think you're really going to enjoy. So we were working on Capriccio, and it was being directed by John Cox, the British opera theatre director, and he was so special. I ended up doing an interview with him for something about his relationship to Strauss text and music, and that basically came out of the fact that I had been fangirling so hard for about 3 weeks.
Wow.
And we were sitting there, and we were like, there was a moment when the Countess had to open a magazine, and it was like he had just timed it to this like magazine opening music in this such a beautiful, elegant, poetic way. I mean, the detail that all came from the music into the production and the movement, it was just heavenly. And so I'm sitting in the front row behind the conductor and with the music staff during one of the stage rehearsals at some point, and he must have gotten up and done something else genius. And I sat there and I was like, fair out, guys, I just love Cox.
Yep.
Yeah. And especially where I've ended up in life, that's now particularly funny.
That's particularly funny, yeah.
So anyway, I didn't live that one down in a hurry, you can imagine.
You could have, I mean, that story could have been about me as well. When we first met, you could have been like, I just love dicks. Like, see?
I'd gotten over it by
Dicks
then.
reunited. Like, I feel it. Hashtag great last names.
Yeah. That definitely, has to go into the merch store.
Okay.
You've got to head off?
I do, I'm sorry.
No, that's no worries. But look, thank you so much
Not
for
private.
coming on today. No, we're conscious you've got to run, and we really appreciate the time you've had. So thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat again. It's been really lovely. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'd love that. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for opening the Pandora's box of deep German opera love nerdery. It has been a real delight. So thank you for having me.
It's always
it's
a
been a
pleasure. It's an
joy.
indulgence for me too.
Thanks, and take care. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Okay, so in this regard, I am the ultimate DAG. So it's been many years since I have sung karaoke, and I don't know why that is, because I actually love it. As, you know, a former singer, why wouldn't I? I think the last time that I sang karaoke, I think that I might have brought out a number of Shania Twain numbers, would you believe? And I'm pretty sure that I sang from this moment on at a karaoke, one of my more recent exploits. So yes, it's really embarrassing. And I think if I were to do it again now, I would do something, because I'm a massive sop and I love her so much. I think I'd probably crack out some Eva Cassidy. But yeah, I do love myself some karaoke.
What will the title of your autobiography be?
Okay, so I think that as someone who has had a few epiphany moments in life and whose journey has shifted and changed a few times, and also for whom food and cooking are super important and have sort of played an integral role to my understanding of the craft of language and opera listening and practicing. I'm pretty sure that it would be something like Coming to My Senses.
What could you give a 10-minute TED Talk on with no preparation?
I reckon I could easily give a 10-minute TED Talk on the art of cooking garlic. Further to that one, I know that sounds ridiculous, but obviously you've put me on the spot, which is the nature of this thing. And I think that would really be it. I love cooking, and I spent a lot of time for a lot of years nerdily also reading about the science of it, and feeling pretty much as passionately about those sorts of details about how the garlic should be cooked on any given occasion as I do about consonants. So yeah, that's the background behind that answer.
What's your most controversial, boring opinion?
Well, I really have a lot of these, unfortunately. And the only reason that I know that is because my wife, Anna, often laughs at some explosive response I have to something, which is really very ordinary. But I have a very strong opinion on it. And often it is to do with food, or how things sound, or I also did a master's in design at some point, which is another story. And so I'm sort of sensitive about visual things, choices of color in various contexts and things. So, but, you know, she has a lot more kind of, she's a very political person, and so has opinions about things that are changing the shape of the world. And then I kind of get outraged by, you know, watching a cooking video where someone is browning the garlic where they shouldn't, for example. And yeah, it's her reaction to my reaction is often quite embarrassing.
Helena and I are forming a crime gang, and we need someone to help us rob the Louvre. What special skill will you bring to the party?
I don't know what this says about me, but the first thing that comes to mind is that I'm really good at small talk. So I think it comes from, you know, so many years of having to work with so many different types of people, and getting people on board or something. I'm not quite sure, but my first idea was I can distract the security guard. I can strike up a conversation about, you know, their mother's cooking or something, you know, some regional French cuisine from the place where they come from, or I don't know what, anywhere, something like that. So I am going to use the power of small talk to distract the security so that the more skilled people can go and do what they need to do.